everybody. Welcome to Oral Sessions. I am here with the one, the only, the president of all elite wrestling, Tony Khan. Hi.
Hey, so good to see you.
It's amazing to see you. We even have our matching headphones. Very chic of us.
Like we planned it.
I know.
They're like a tag team.
We are. Oh my God. Could you imagine that? I don't think we do very well.
I don't think so either. I'm not a great athlete.
I am, but I mean, I could be somewhat athletic, but I get blown up walking up the stairs these days. So I'm out. I got nothing. So first things off the bat, well, we've got you here. Just to, talk about it. Congratulations on what you guys put together for the Brody Lee tribute show. It was beautiful. You guys did just such an amazing job with that. It had such a human element to it, and I easily regarded as one of the best tribute shows that we've ever seen in wrestling. And obviously that was incredibly hard for everybody at AEW, but I think you guys all really rallied behind the Hubers and did such a beautiful job.
I thought it was the best effort the crew has ever put together. I'm so proud of everyone who worked on the show and everyone in the company and how they've handled the situation, because people knew for a long time John was sick. We told every wrestler. Amanda went out and had told people that John's not doing well and he needs your prayers and your thoughts, but also he needs you not to tell anybody this. And a lot of us were worried when she told the entire crew at once, but everybody kept the secret and, supported them. And we did everything we could. And then, when it came time, all the wrestlers wanted to do something really nice for him. And I knew the tributes were going to be genuine and from the heart. Like, one of the greatest things you can say about Brody is that everybody immediately, when the news came out that Brody had passed away, the first things everybody said about him are, this is a great person who loved his family so much and he loved wrestling. And those themes just came out, and it wasn't a orchestrated, choreographed thing at all. That's just the
No,
John.
it was very organic. Absolutely. I mean, anyone that he's met and that has had any kind of an interaction with Brody just knows like what an outstanding human being he was. So congratulations on everything you guys put together, and just during such a difficult time of having having a feel good moment for the wrestling community that I think everybody really needed.
Worst thing I think we've ever been through, Renee. It was the worst, and yeah. We miss him. And when we did the show, I had no idea what to do a couple days before the show. And Saturday, Brody passed. Is the day after Christmas, and talking to Amanda that night, and she decided to tell everybody, for the first time, that he'd been sick and that he'd passed. And it was a shock to a lot of people. It was a shock to some of his good friends even. And I felt like we had to do a tribute that would be right for him, but I didn't know what to do. And I didn't sleep Saturday night. And the next day, the Jaguars had a game, and I went to the game and very restless. And late in the game and at the end of the game, I went over to Amanda, who she'd come to the game with Brody, and I ended up spending a long time talking to Amanda and also a little bit of time talking to Brody. And I told her, I swear, I promise, this is going to be the greatest tribute ever. I'd be lying if I said I know exactly what we're going to do. And I asked her how comfortable Flo Brody was about being involved, and she said very comfortable being involved. I can't say enough about how much people did to support her in this time. Yeah. People that work here, Mega, Margaret, our legal team, have been supporting her personally as friends above and beyond. And then Cody and Vance, number 10 from the Dark Water, and Brandy, and just a bunch of people have been really supportive. Cody and Vance were there with her and have been really good friends in this difficult time. And I wanted to make it really special, but I came back from the game Sunday night. I still hadn't slept, and I had to lay down for a little bit. And then I got up from this kind of long nap, and I had all these missed calls, and I hadn't slept in days, and just kind of came out of a little bit of maybe a 2-hour coma. And I had a missed call from Dave Meltzer, and I called Dave back. And he asked me what we're going to do. And I told him, I honestly don't know. And this was like, at this point, I don't know, it's like 2, 3 in the morning. And paper after I got off the phone with Dave, and that's when I came up with the idea of the Dark Order represented in all the matches, teaming with baby faces in every match to make it clear that we're painting them in a brighter light, in a heroic light. And the story of the night would be, can the Dark Order get the clean sweep? Can they sweep all these matches? And I think we knew that the tributes would be from the heart, and I knew that there'd be great videos, and I had gotten the rights to the song in advance, hoping that Brody was going to kick out, but knowing that the doctor said it was not a high percentage chance, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't behind the eight ball as far as getting him the greatest tribute video possible. So I got the music rights in advance, before he had passed. And so then came up with this idea and how to work -1, -1, Lil Brody into the story and have him in there. But there were other things people came up with along the way
that kid knows how to wheel the kendo stick, huh?
He's very stiff shot. He's injured a lot of people here, and but people had touches. I came in with this format, and I was like, "Here's what I'd like everyone to do," and everyone was so great about it and wanted to put on the best tribute for him. And I said, if we can make this the greatest show ever, then his name will live forever. And right now on Cage Match, it's the #1 rated wrestling show of all time, which I think is awesome.
That's amazing.
That was the goal. And everybody that went out and killed it. The matches were great. The tributes were great. The video was great. And the most important part of all was that Amanda and Brody and someday Nolan will be able to see this too. And, because he's too young to really understand everything that's going on right now. So it's, thanks for asking about it. It's been really hard, but I should add, like, people came up that day with like a lot of touches that helped make the show more special. Like Lance Archer went out and he said he wanted to get.
Yeah, and having Eric Rowan there as well.
That was Spears' idea.
Oh,
it was like the day before he asked if I wanted to use Eric Redbeard. Yeah. And I said I would like to use Eric Redbeard. That's a great idea. I would probably have him come out in the middle of the show and do this thing with, the Dark Order and Hangman there in that spot in the middle of the show, and then have Amanda and Brody at the end, and that's why we did it that way. And
yeah, absolutely.
So it was. I'm sorry. It was just. I'm glad you brought it up, Renee. But it's the hardest thing to talk about too.
Yeah, of course. No, absolutely. And just the other takeaway that I have from the whole thing is my communication with Amanda during everything, and the main thing she kept reiterating to me was just how amazing AEW was to her throughout everything. You guys really made her feel as safe and secure, I think, as somebody could during such a difficult time. So kudos to you. Kudos to everybody at AEW. And now -1. He's going to be a future roster member, huh? What went into putting that contract together and deciding, like, let's put this down on pen and paper here for little Brody Jr.?
Mega has been so supportive of him, and like I said, Cody had spent a lot of time with him, and different people on the roster really enjoyed him, and he loves being around. He loves wrestling so much, and we're just trying to give him great stuff to help him develop his wrestling mind, and frankly to occupy his wrestling mind in a really difficult time. Yeah, his birthday is this weekend, and we're gonna have him there live to celebrate the birthday of -1, and Amanda is very excited about it. I've always tried to make sure anything he does, Amanda's excited and wants to do. So if -1 gets his homework done in the next week, he will be there live on Wednesday night.
There's rules, kid.
There's rules in AEW and in life. There are rules.
Exactly.
And so that was it, and it's great having him around. And I appreciate you asking though.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say this story too, that while we're talking about him, that, I think this, that one of the last moments he had of being aware of something was when he found out you were pregnant. I know. And I was told he was very, very happy for you and John. And I don't think he had a lot of good days after that, but that was a good day for him.
That was something, when we were coming out and letting everybody know, or John dropping the bomb on Dynamite, Just kind of, navigating all that. But after talking to Amanda and she told me that, I mean, it made me feel so good to know that, for him to be able to receive a bit of information that made him happy and to put a big smile on his face while going through everything he was going through. I mean, I don't even, how do you react to something like that? I mean, it's so special. And so just to have that connection with Brody through that is really cool.
He's a special person, and he loved family, and he valued family above all else, which is why we wanted to tell everybody that about him. And I think now the whole world knows that about him and what a great family he has. So that's special too. And then to be able to declare Brody Lee the TNT champion for life, I think is pretty awesome. And really, he's not alone. We're so many of us. We're all so happy for you, Renee. I mean, we're all really excited.
Thank you. If I get out of breath during this interview, that's why I'm like, oh, my body's just like going through all these insane changes. But it is really, really cool. It's funny watching John react to everything. We just came back from doing an ultrasound, and it was the first time he actually got to be in the room for the ultrasound. He was like, oh my God, I can just see his brain like getting rattled, like checking it all out. And see, apparently our baby has gigantic long legs. So that'll be after him, not me. Okay, so here we are, like a year into AEW. You've done it. What a successful year for you. What is like your reflections upon? I mean, you're over a year now, but just kind of looking back at the success that you guys have been able to have in this first year. What's your kind of take on it all?
I'm very proud of the success we've had. I'm not surprised, and I think we're going to have a great 2021. We've learned a lot, and we've had great progress, great growth. And one of the biggest moments for us was when John came in, and that was at the very beginning on our first show, at the end of our first show. And things have been so great since then. And I'm just really excited. Hopefully, we'll be able to get fans back in full capacity sometime soon. But what we've been doing, I think, has also been great and has been the best thing in wrestling, in my opinion. Really, we made Jacksonville the only place in America where you can safely go to a show. And I think, from what I've seen, we've had great experiences with fans. Everybody reaches out to say how they felt very safe, how if their family or friend group in their pod, nobody bothered them, and we try to keep people there, not mingling around with other people, and everybody's spaced out. And the idea came from the drive-in movies.
Oh, cool! Yeah, no honking though, thank God.
Yeah, and it's a little. But that way I can't actually park cars up in the seating bowl.
Yeah.
So rather than parking cars, you just kind of space everyone out. But it's the same idea. And when drive-in movies kind of made a comeback, everyone was trying to find creative ways to market their products, and movies were no exception. And so I stole the idea from the Tonight Show of having the wrestlers around the ringside, and then I stole the idea from drive-in movies of spacing people out. And a lot of football teams and different people are trying it now, but we were really the first ones to kind of develop the plan. And I know for the NFL and specifically for the Jaguars, they paid really close attention to what we did.
Oh my God. I think for everybody, I mean, just the way that wrestling in general has handled the lack of audience. I mean, having like the cardboard cutouts has been weird, or like, trying to find different ways to navigate around it. But I feel like wrestling in general has really been like a front runner in figuring out how to work through this. It's been really impressive to see.
A lot of wrestling is about innovative and being problem solving, at work. And I think that this has presented problems. It's been very challenging, but like I said, wrestling's about problem solving. So
absolutely. I mean, you think of how often plans change, or you've got to change things on the fly. It's like if anybody can navigate those waters, it's wrestling 100%. So I mean, it's just, you look back at what the year was, and what a bunch of crazy situations to have your first year of a show really getting off the ground and a company getting off the ground. What are some of the things that you look back at as learning lessons, or things that you want to change moving into year two?
It's a great question. Most important thing for us in year two, this next year, which is, it's year two full year, but it's kind of 2021 will be the third year we've been around because we got started in 19. But I think as we're going into our third year, I'm really excited, and the second year of Dynamite, I'm really excited about adding a third hour of television.
Hell yeah.
And I think going to be the most important thing for us, because right now we've accumulated so much talent and so much depth on the roster, and being able to showcase all of our great wrestlers.
So when you say a third hour added on, this is not a third hour added on to Dynamite. This will be something separate from that.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It will not be. It will not be a third hour of Dynamite, and it will not be on Wednesday, but it will be a third hour with Warner Media. It'll be a third TV hour, and it's great exposure for us. We've got Dark, which has been a great platform for our wrestlers on YouTube, and I think there are other streaming options and other shows we could do with YouTube or other streaming platforms. And so there's going to be more opportunities. There's going to be more real estate for our wrestlers, but without oversaturating. I definitely don't want to do 3 hours of Dynamite. And I feel really strongly about keeping our big four pay-per-views, the core big four. And we may develop other shows. We've done other streaming specials and things and big episodes of Dynamite. But I think just expanding our calendar will be a big thing in 2021. As far as lessons I learned, the biggest lesson I learned was in 2019. And in 2020, the year's over now, and I think I did a much better job of this in 2020, and I felt like it helped the company rebound through a really difficult time. And that is being personally accountable. And there were times in the first year where I'm in charge of creative, and I had a lot of people around me, and there were stuff that I let through that I have to be a better filter of ideas. And a lot, to be honest, the stuff I liked the least in 2019 was stuff that I had low expectations for, and stuff that I almost scratched. And there were things that I didn't like. And then by the beginning of 2020, I had pretty much gotten to the point where it was, I should trust my instincts more, and I really need to be responsible and stand up if I don't like an idea and say, like, no, you're not going to do that. And I think this year we're much more organized, and I tried to get more organized and do a better job in 2020. And I think the shows were more logical and better, and it paid off because we had a really challenging environment in the pandemic, but we've been able to maintain our audience better than any other wrestling show in America. And if you look at the stats from the beginning of 2020 to the end, Dynamite retained the audience better than anybody. And it was a really challenging year to do that. You know, there's even before the COVID pandemic, there were external challenges with cord cutting and a lot of the viewership moving away from cable. So to stay so strong in our viewership and actually build up and have some of our best audiences by the end of 2020 is pretty great. And I was on the phone with TNT today on a conference call, and they were actually telling us how great we're doing. That's good news. And John is a huge part of that, and having John back this week really was great.
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
He knows how to draw a crowd. He knows what he's doing once he gets out there.
Pretty great. He's pretty great. He's the best. And honestly, you know, I missed him when he wasn't here for a few weeks, and we missed him as a company. But I think for everybody involved, and John in particular, having the fans back has been really good. And there have been moments with our crowd, which is sellout now for us, is 20%, is close to 1,100. It's like 1,080 is a full house for us now. If we open up the top balcony, if not, then we do about 750. But basically, we've got a pretty loyal base of fans coming in, and it's almost like a territory, which is pretty cool.
It's so cool.
But it's like a worldwide televised, internationally televised territory, which is like kind of something I always wanted to do, and I never thought this would be that, but it's pretty great. And the fans that are here have supported it. But John is one of the people who talks the most to me about how important the live crowds are and how psychologically, which I think we could talk today specifically. You and I could talk for hours about John's psychology and how I think he's so cerebral and one of the smartest people I know.
The way, when I just watch him at home, the way he dissects things, or when he gets in his zone, I'm like, I have to give him his space during that. He is in working mode. His brain just works on a different level that I find fascinating. It's really cool the way he looks at things and analyzes things. And it's really interesting, especially now. I mean, from what he's been able to do and achieve with you guys over the whatever it's been, a year and a half, however long it's been that he's been with AEW. But just seeing, I literally, we had this conversation last night. I was like, man, like how lucky are we that, like, look at the year you've had, for him to be like the PW #1 wrestler of the year, like just these amazing accolades during such weird year and all these weird times. But it's cool to see someone really flourish in an environment and really just be the best that they can be. And for you to allow that space for people to grow and develop, I think is really amazing.
Yeah, I love collaborating with people, but there's nobody I love collaborating with more than him. He's my favorite person to work with. He has the best ideas, and about our three-way calls, and I love doing our three-way calls.
Yeah.
And I was telling Amanda this story because we did with Brody, and because of the pandemic, you can't do all the face-to-face meetings you would have done in the past. So we planned so much stuff with Brody on a three-way call. Like John and I talked for probably 45 minutes, and then we patched Brody in, and we talked for another 45 minutes. And it's a great process, and I love talking wrestling with John. I love talking ideas with John, but I learn so much every time I talk to him. Not always just about wrestling either. He knows so much about so many different things.
Yeah, me too. I'm like that all the time. I'm like, damn, he's far more insightful than I can be. I'm so knee-jerk reaction. I'm like so high energy, and he really processes things differently than me. I find it his pace on life I find interesting.
So you can edit this out if you don't want to use it. But I've read some of the book he's writing.
Oh,
and it's awesome. It's awesome.
Really
I
cool,
love it.
Right? He
I
would
love it.
like, so it's funny because he's working off of my laptop. So my email's set up on there. So anytime he sends it off to himself, it's sent through my sent email. So he's like, check it and read it. And reading all this stuff that he's been writing, and I had no doubt. I've been up his ass forever. I'm like, dude, you need to write a book, because he can be a very eloquent speaker. And his memory, as I'm thinking of the word, what's the word? His memory is so amazing. The stuff that he's able to draw from. But the fact that he's actually doing that now and writing it himself, I think it's going to be such a badass product.
I completely agree.
With us talking about this, but I think I can't wait.
I'm so excited about it. It's so cool, and the best part of reading it has been that like you can so tell he's writing it himself, because it's like literally like reading him talking, which is the best. It's like a transcript of him talking. But it's really interesting, and
it's very cool.
I'm very excited about it. So yeah, if he doesn't want us to use it, we'll just cut this. But otherwise,
I'll check with him. But it is very cool. Proud of him. So in the absence, so, like you just said, John's been home. He was off TV after he lost the title to Kenny Omega. He's home for a few weeks. How important is it for you in those weeks of having somebody of his caliber off of TV to really let some other stars build and step into that spotlight?
It's really important. And we tried to do that and showcase people. And also there was a good story reason why he was off. So even when he's gone, he's still featured. So it's the best of both worlds. I look at other times too when people have been off either for storyline reasons or for personal reasons or both. And in this case, it was good for both. I think it was great time for John to be with you, but it was also good for the story. Made sense. And it's hard when you don't have one of your top stars in your entire portfolio of your roster there. But I do think we tried to cover it by featuring a lot of the other top stars that we have, and it's great. It's the best of both worlds when you can advance a story. Where we did a great rating this past week, where we were up, and the peak of the show, the two peaks were when John came back against Kenny, and in the middle of the show, and then for the main event with Darby and Brian Cage, which is what we wanted. Those are the two big stories we've been building, and I think to get John back out there, and the story with John and Kenny is far from over, and it was
right hard. It is. Damn that Omega.
Yeah. I didn't see a thing, by the way.
I saw your tweet about that. Saw nothing.
I missed that. But I'm so happy he's back, and you can't say enough about what he brings to our show.
Yeah.
But it was great to feature the other wrestlers while he was out, and we were able to build up Darby versus Brian Cage, and done a lot of really exciting stuff. We're building Top Flight up. They're going to be a great team for us, building the Acclaimed and a lot of young tag teams. Private Party with Matt Hardy.
Love Private Party. Those guys are amazing. They're really they're special. They've got something cool going on, definitely.
They might have signed with the wrong manager though. I don't know. Matt, something about Matt seems pretty fishy lately.
There's something always fishy about Matt.
Yeah, I love that.
Who else in the roster though? I mean, you guys have the depth of your guys' roster is continually growing and developing. Who else are you kind of looking at, you know, say in the next 5 to 10 years, who you kind of see AEW or just like wrestling in general kind of being on the shoulders of?
I still think John's going to be a huge part of it, even though John's a huge part of it now. And MJF, the biggest program MJF's ever been in was with John, and it's one of the biggest programs of the year. And if you look at as far as moving business, you could argue it was one of the most important things in all of wrestling this year because it did really strong business for us. And at a time when, you know, we were missing people, you know, was it Cody when did the bubble for 6.5 weeks? For something like that for the Go Big Show, which is a huge rating success now. So it was like the best of both worlds because we were able to navigate and people like Brody Lee stepped up, and Brody Lee versus Dustin Rhodes did a great rating. But that was huge for us. And John versus MJF really helped get us through. And of course, Kenny and Hangman were in a great program at the time, and we were getting ready for the Kenny and Hangman versus FTR match. That was great, and kind of building up the split of Kenny and Hangman. But really, John and MJF were in the main event, and they did a bunch of great numbers for us. MJF's going to be really important in wrestling. I think what's great for us right now is like 5-10 years. A lot of the people who are on top are still going to be on top in 5-10 years because our top people are not, for the most part, you know, of the most advanced age. We have a lot of top people in their early to mid 30s. And those people I still think are going to be on top in 5 years. I also think there's a good chance we've seen major advancement from, like I said, MJF's very young, but he's already one of the top wrestlers.
Yeah.
Not just
in
AEW.
Is he, like 23, 24?
I think the max is 24, 25.
Yeah. Okay.
But he might be 24. We should Google this.
We'll Google it. We'll put up a graphic here at some point. Max is 24.
Early to mid 20s, and Jungle Boy, Darby Allin is very young. Sammy Guevara.
Darby's amazing.
And in a decade, I think these are going to be really important people in wrestling. And there's a lot more, you know, young stars. Ricky Starks and Brian Cage and Team Taz have done a great job. And a lot of the young tag teams we just talked about, right? Private Party, Top Flight. These guys are so young. So I'm really excited.
Even in the women's division, I got to say, I mean, watching Tay in her matchup with Serena Deeb, seeing the growth and development in her has been incredible. I also think Anna Jay is somebody that you can just see these leaps and bounds of somebody that is developing or already has that star quality and just honing those skills in. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I completely agree. We have some really good young stars. It's amazing how far Anna Jay's come. Given her experience, I mean, is a true rookie in the wrestling business. And Ty Conti made great strides. Britt Baker is a star.
Oh my God, she's the best.
She's so great. I love Britt.
She's amazing. Yeah,
and
I mean, talk about just like getting those like characters in there too. I mean, that's so important, and I just think she's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Britt's a 3-dimensional wrestler. She can do everything, and have got great people across the women's roster and really young talent, like we're talking about. Penelope Ford's excellent.
Yep.
Thunder Rosa has come in and been really, really impactful. I really think, even though Thunder Rosa is not a full-time AEW wrestler, she's here often and she's been great when she's here, and she's added a lot also.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now just looking at the competition in wrestling, how important do you think it is for wrestling to be where it is right now and us actually to be having legit competition, to having everything kind of be thriving the way that it is right now?
I think it's great. I think before the pandemic, which has obviously changed the way wrestling is presented, I think, you know, you would have said a year ago or 10, 11 months ago that what a great time it is to be a wrestling fan. I still think you'd feel that way, but there's nothing anybody can do to control the pandemic or stop COVID. But I do think, certainly when their arenas are full, this competition has been very, very good, and it's been a great time for wrestling. I can only imagine how frustrated wrestling fans would have been through this if there had not been an AEW, frankly, because I think it's been the best show through the pandemic, and I'm very biased. I've seen other good shows, and I'm not saying it's the only good show, but I think it's been consistently the best show. And I think I've seen other people do great stuff, and I think we all push each other. And likewise, I think the competition's good for us too. And mostly I think it's good for the fans. And, certainly right before the pandemic, when John won the title, I was saying I thought this was the best time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were feeling that way. Absolutely. You could feel that sort of surge of a new energy of like, oh, there's some new stuff going on. Some new life has been breathed into things. There's other opportunities, regardless of what somebody wants to watch or perform in. It's nice to just have those options. But is that something, do you pay attention to watching Raw or SmackDown or NXT as far as like your creative process goes and all that?
Not as far as the creative process goes so much, although it is, you don't want to be doing the exact same stuff. So I do think it's important to make sure, you're not doing the exact same stuff somebody's already doing. But I also just like watching wrestling. And I watch a lot of shows. I watch those shows, but I watch other shows too. And I watch New Japan, and I'll watch the big AAA shows, like Triple Mania was great. Kenny Omega's match was excellent. If you haven't seen it, Kenny Omega versus Laredo Kid, I watched it on Twitch. It was great.
Yeah.
And there's been great wrestling all over the world. And I think I watch Wrestle Kingdom. I try to keep up on their shows, and I think there was some great stuff on Wrestle Kingdom. There have been other shows in New Japan this year that I liked. There were other shows I didn't like from other companies, and them included. But I think for the most part, everybody's, like you said, in wrestling has done their best to try and keep the fans entertained and also keep everybody working.
Yeah.
And that's something I take a lot of pride in, is that we've maintained our staff, and the integrity of our staff have actually grown as a company through the pandemic, because I'm, have actually more people than we started with. So
add them on.
Yeah.
Everybody jump on board. Okay, so now the deal with Impact. How did this come about? What was the decision going into like, all right, we're going to work together with Impact? We got the Good Brothers running in.
This is Kenny's idea. He asked me about it, and I love good ideas, and I don't do every idea. I try not to do the bad ones. And like I said, that's been something I try to do a better job of. And also, I don't do every good one. Sometimes because I don't realize they're good, because I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes too. And I think that sometimes there are also good ones that just don't fit. It's like, that's a great idea. I just can't do it because that person's already doing this, or I can't do it because we have another plan that we're locked into. This was something Kenny brought up that I thought was a great idea. And he put a lot of time and thought into it. And I give 100% of the credit to Kenny. And Don Callis and Kenny have a really close relationship. And, I think that is what was behind it. But I also think Kenny believed Don would be a very powerful advocate for him and could fill the role of a really, really strong heel manager for Kenny as a top heel in the territory. And I think the top heel in wrestling right now. And I think that's something people wanted to see. There are some wrestlers like Steve Austin in 2001, where I don't think people were ready to boo him, mm-hmm. or that they wanted to see that person be a villain. But I absolutely think people were ready to see this Kenny Omega, and he was excited to present it. But he didn't just want to present the same Kenny Omega people had seen. He put so much thought into innovating, into changing, and it's why I always say I think the two best wrestlers in the world are Kenny and John, are the two, and that's why we have showcased them as the top two. And that I think this is the Kenny people were ready to see, but we didn't just want to flip a switch. It's been a slow progression over the course of a year. And if you look at the story with Kenny and Hangman and how it built, and then the Eliminator tournament to fight John and how it built, and then at the end of John versus Eddie, when Kenny walked out and it's like, hey, here we are, winter is coming. And I think Kenny is the person that I would give the credit for that idea to. And then I went with Kenny to the taping, and they've got their pay-per-view this weekend, and it was something he believed in. He wanted to help Don, but he also thought it could help us, and he was right. And I wanted to support the idea. So I green-lighted it. I said, we'll do this. We will partner with them, and I'll come with you. And I went up with him. And while I was there, Tony Schiavone doesn't live far away. He's a couple hours away. He said, I'll come hang out with you. And Tony and I were up there, and I had the idea, why don't we buy ads on Impact and do promos on Impact?
So funny.
Thank you. I'm glad. Well, people seem to like them, and that's why we've been doing them and kept doing them. And it's great. It promotes our show, and it also keeps the storyline with them going. And I think that when we first did it, I didn't know that people would enjoy them as much as they have, and I didn't plan to keep doing them for as long as we have, but they've gotten a really great reaction, and it's good, like I said, for both companies, I think. And so I just had the idea when we were up there, and it was funny because I didn't bring a change of clothes. So I told Tony, I was like, I think this is going to look really bad. You didn't bring your
boots? You always bring your boots, Tony.
Yeah, I didn't bring another, like I only had the shirt I was wearing.
Yeah.
And we were going to tape a few of these in Nashville. And I said, Tone, I think we might need clothes. So while I was with Kenny and Don and they were putting their stuff together, and I was just trying to keep track of everything going on and there to support Kenny and also to make sure nothing too crazy was going on, that Tony went and actually bought like a change of shirts for us. So it was great. Yeah, he picked up a black Ralph Lauren polo shirt for me, which if you see that shirt, like Tony bought that at the store along with the other shirt he's wearing in the second promo. So
quick little wardrobe change.
It was great of him to do that. I was like, Tony, we're going to look pretty low budget here if we're wearing the same shirts every week. So,
yeah, we can't have that. I mean, appearance is everything. Let's come on. So this brings me to my next question. When are we going to get to see Tony Khan as a regular on-air personality? Is that something you ever want to do?
No, it's not. And I've come as close to doing it as I will. I made a big exception coming out, and I thought it was the right thing to do, to be there on behalf of the company to express for everybody how much Brody meant to us. And I wanted to pay the highest respect to him that I could, and to his family, and to Amanda and Brody, and be there for them. But other than that, I've never come out and done that in that role. Occasionally, because of the story with Impact, there'll be times where I think it makes sense. Like Matt and Nick were this past week, for example, they were waiting to be introduced by Don. Instead, Don brought out Anderson and Gallows, the Good Brothers. So Matt and Nick were standing there. Where would they watch us? Well, they were standing right by the curtain. They would go to Gorilla, and they would stand there with me, and I'm not going to be thrilled about it either. I'm not surprised because I knew what he was, if that makes sense. Like, that's why I looked at him and said, are you surprised? They should have expected this from Kenny by now. But I don't want to do that. And we have a limited amount of TV time, and we have a great roster, and there's a lot of other people that can be featured. And frankly, the character of the general manager doesn't need to be featured on TV a lot. You don't see I am the general manager of a Premier League team. You don't see me on NBC very much, because that's not the job of the general manager, is not to be on TV a lot. And there are times, and there's a time and a place when if there's a statement that needs to be made, or you got to say something, that you do. And in the case of AEW, it's announcing matches. In the case of Fulham, it could be announcing players, or announcing somebody's coming in on loan, or once every few years saying, guys, you need to do a better job. But there is, for me, the role of the general manager, there's not really a need for that person to be on TV consistently. I think you just have to explain, hey, the general manager's made this match, the general manager's made this match. And it's a device that you need. So I think of myself more as a device than a character on the show, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And it's really interesting. I mean, just looking, you're bringing it up with Fulham and, with the Jaguars, everything that you guys juggle in general. I mean, for your family, how did that conversation go down when you're like, I want to start a wrestling promotion?
Not well. It didn't go well. He did not support this at all. And I put the business plan together, and then I was pretty much ready to commit to it. And again, he was very cold feet, and we had some very uncomfortable, loud conversations where I told him this was going to be great. And he's been so cool about it, my dad. He's the smartest person I've ever known. He knew nothing about wrestling, and now all of a sudden, because he's the smartest business person, now that he's paying attention to wrestling, he's learning a lot, and he makes really observant points sometimes, even though it's not his thing. He loves AEW. AEW is his thing, but he was never a wrestling fan before AEW. I have a lot of people close to me that are like that are intellectuals, like the highest IQ people I know that kind of look down on wrestling. Now they watch AEW and they see it and they're like, wow, I never watched wrestling before. But to be fair, I told them, if you tried watching wrestling 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't have liked what you were watching. Sure. And I try not to insult the audience's intelligence. I know we don't do perfect, but I try to maintain a sense of logic and not do ridiculous stuff all the time, even though sometimes you do some ridiculous stuff. So
I think people can really get a different respect for wrestling, though, because I think wrestling has always sort of been, kind of regarded as like that black sheep of entertainment or whatever. People snub their nose up at it. But once you really start to understand the psychology that goes behind it, the athletics behind it, it's impossible to not develop a respect for what the companies are doing, what the talent is doing. So it's really cool when you can see new people jump on board and become fans, and they start asking questions, and eventually they start talking carny. It's one thing after another.
That's the crazy thing, is how quickly people learn it, and they start reading, forums online. They go on Reddit, they go on Twitter, and they learn a lot. But my best friend is a Harvard math major. He's got a degree from Harvard in math, and he's a genius. He's one of the smartest people I know. And same as my dad, he paid no attention to wrestling. And I would always try to get these people to watch wrestling. Now this is not an expression you would want to use during COVID, but I tried to spread the love of wrestling like a virus. Anybody who was around me, I would try to infect them with loving wrestling. And some people, I made a lot of fans in my lifetime in school, especially, and they wouldn't watch wrestling when I wasn't around as much. Some of them became like lifelong fans, but there were other people that they would watch it with me, and they kind of knew what was going on, but I would try and bring people into it. And my father was never someone I succeeded on.
What is your go-to match when you're telling someone to get into it? You're like, hey, just go watch this and then come back and talk to me. What's like your quick knee-jerk reaction to that?
It's changed a lot over time. When I was real young, it might have been like Steamboat versus Savage from WrestleMania 3, or it might have been Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect from King of the Ring 93. I think then I got Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat matches, and I would have said those, Flair and Steamboat, maybe from the Chi-Town Rumble was a tape I had when I was young, before I'd even seen the Music City Showdown in Nashville or the New Orleans Clash. But then later, I might have said the John Cena Brock Lesnar match where they beat the hell out of each other.
Okay, yeah.
The first one, not the short one, not the short beating. I'm talking about Brock's first match back, Extreme Rules 2012, where he absolutely just beat out of John. And that was
big meaty men beating the hell out of each other.
That was something, and it wasn't for everybody, but it was a lot safer than the match he had with Randy at SummerSlam, I thought. And it was also still the idea I thought they were trying to create, that it was like a dangerous situation. And then I would have said a lot of matches that involved the Young Bucks and the Golden Lovers and those people. I got really into around 2013, 14. I'd seen the Golden Lovers, and I really liked the Young Bucks a lot. And I thought that, hey, these guys are going to be like the next Hardy Boys in 2009, 2010. That's what I thought. And I think a lot of wrestling fans felt that way. They've come to transcend tag team wrestling, and they're so important. And for our division, so many of the teams that are here and the emphasis we put on it, so much of it comes down to the Young Bucks and their belief in it, and how great they are as tag team wrestlers, and their minds for tag team wrestling. It's so great.
I've got a Golden Lovers shirt upstairs I keep forgetting to take out. I couldn't technically wear it for a very long time, so I think I got to bust that thing out.
That's great. I love the Golden Lovers, and I love that stuff is great. And the G1s of that time were great. So before AEW, these are some things I might have pointed out. And now if people ask me to point to matches, I would point to Revolution. And I would say watch that show bell to bell. I think it's the best wrestling pay-per-view I've ever seen. You can't top a show with a better closing moment or a more satisfying conclusion than John winning the title, the eye patch thing being a bit of playing possum, the speech he gave at the end to the Chicago crowd, which is the perfect place for us to do it because Chicago has been so important in the development of AEW. And just start to finish, I think Young Bucks versus Kenny and Hangman is one of the greatest matches and the culmination of that part of the story, but a story that kept going and really just the end of that chapter, not the end of the story. I think Cody and MJF also, that was the culmination of a great story and something we haven't gone back to that someday I think we will maybe see those guys cross paths again. But Cody and MJF was a great match that ended a really, really, really important story for us. Orange Cassidy and Pac, something I was very proud of.
Oh my God, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. I had that one up my sleeve for several months, and nobody knew Orange Cassidy and Pac were working the pay-per-view. And then people would ask me like a month, like, well, what's Pac doing?
How's that going to work? Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's going to be Orange Cassidy versus Pac. And like, wait, what? And because the build was very subtle because they had done stuff. There had been like Pac versus Trent. There had been a 6-man tag before I had this Death Triangle thing I'd conceived with Pac and the Lucha Brothers. I had Pac just with TH2, Jack and Angelico. So there would be partners against Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. So they'd like had some matches. I was going to be able to build good video packages and tell some backstory. But really the key thing was when Pac was at his most angry moment after the Iron Man match with Kenny is the perfect time for Orange Cassidy to come out there. And I was in catering in Kansas City with Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends and Tony Schiavone before their interviews that they would do later in the show. And I was telling him that after Chuck said this line that I wanted him to say, you know, that Orange Cassidy is going to try at Revolution, I was promising the guys, this crowd is going to chant, he's going to try, he's going to try, he's going to try. And they did. It was pretty cool. So, and that's, I love that match. And it was really fun working on that. And Darby and Sammy, another story that is a satisfying conclusion. I mentioned Savage and Steamboat earlier, and I'd be lying if I said that, Darby getting his throat smashed with a skateboard wasn't inspired by that.
Yeah.
And there's so much great stuff on that show, but those are some of the great things. And that's my favorite wrestling pay-per-view. So now I would probably point someone to Revolution, maybe give them the countdown to Revolution so they get all the stories in and understand what was going on with John in the inner circle, how, he'd rejected their offer and the car and stolen the car and they took his eye out. And then
I still get asked to this day if we still own that car.
That's my dad's car.
I know.
Yeah. John's driven it a number of times now, though. He's done some donuts in it, and hopefully Dad's not listening to your show.
I know, right? Hey, sorry, Dad. All right, so here comes the big pressure questions. Dun dun dun. We had fun chit-chatting about some wrestling. But as I'm like doing my research, which again, I do most of my research on wikipedia.com. Maybe it's .org. I think it's .org. Just it is fascinating to me to imagine what it is like being raised by a self-made billionaire. What kind of pressure goes into that? What like a childhood is like being raised by a man with such insane work ethic and all these ideas. What is that like?
It's really, really hard. He's really nice person. He's very supportive, and he's a very loving man. He's also a very, very hard man. He's not going to give it to you easy. He's not going to tell you you've pulled something off or done a good job on something unless he really, really means it. And I don't hear it from him very often, but I've heard it from him a lot on AEW. And he's also been really great to say in public that he was very wrong about AEW. And he even went to Forbes and multiple big publications and has said in print that it's a good lesson in parenting, that sometimes you have to trust your kids. And in this case, I had put a business plan together, and we all know, like, I think it's a lot of wrestling fans probably listening to your show, maybe some who aren't, but and then maybe we'll make them fans. But yeah. I do think, I hope, but then you would think after all this time that after Dynamite has had a lot of good results, that it would get old hearing good job from him. But now hearing it most weeks, almost every week, is pretty nice. He watches the show. He likes the show. and he's really proud of AEW, and that makes me really proud. You know, I haven't heard it a lot, and but it's, to be fair, it's hard to get the praise from him, but it's worth it when you get it. And he's a really, really great person. He's very, very loving and sweet, but he's not gonna sugarcoat things or tell you you've done something really special if you haven't. And that's why it was yeah. To be honest, it's kind of not 100% dissimilar from John, where
Got it.
he's a
So our
really,
kid's in for a doozy.
no, in a good way, and I think I turned out pretty good, right?
I think you're thriving. You're doing a great job.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm doing good. So I think
good.
there's something to it where he's like a self-made, hard-driven man who's so intelligent, and sometimes he's really hard to get a read on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very caring, but he doesn't always show it. But he's really nice, and it doesn't always seem that way to people, and people are really intimidated by him, and you really have to earn his respect. Praise does not come from him lightly. Everything I just said applies to both Dad and to John.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
it?
know. I'm constantly like that to John. I'm like, tell me I look pretty. Give me something. Throw me a bone. He's like,
Maybe I mean professionally. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
like living with John, but professionally, like a compliment from John is the highest compliment you can get in wrestling. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
throw praise around lightly, and he's not one for the gooey stuff. But I do think that when you
give him
get
a few cocktails, then he is.
then
and he'll
maybe
get
a little
okay.
more with a couple. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is
Yeah.
a good comparison of a self-made man who's accomplished so much and become world famous and done it all on his own. And I think there are good comparisons there. So actually, two of the people that aren't always going to languish praise on you, but when I get it, I'm really proud of it, are Dad and John. And so maybe if that, I'm just giving that as a comparison so that you understand, because I love my dad so much and I love John so much, and I actually see a lot of similarities. So.
Yeah. No, I just find that like interesting just to imagine what that would like being like growing up in a household like that. And you went to the same school as your dad too, right?
Yeah.
That was just like an active decision just to like follow in the footsteps.
I grew up there. It was like, it was a huge part of my life. My parents had gone to school there. They met there. My dad started his business in Champaign. And I don't know if you have been through Champaign, because they never did TV there, but
And
there
I'm
were
sure
house
I've
shows
driven
there.
through Champaign. Yeah.
There's a lot of, it was like a house show town. So it's a college town, and I grew up there, and I actually went to a high school on the campus of the college I went to, where my parents went to school. And so I'd grown up there, and I go into the Illinois games. To me, my childhood was wrestling and Illinois football and Illinois basketball. And so I grew up around, wrestling in the Big Ten. And funnily enough, I never got that interested in amateur wrestling, even though the Big Ten is the best league for amateur wrestling. And it was like literally 5 minutes from my house. And people would tell me, there's real wrestling. Go see the real wrestling. Don't watch the stuff you watch on TV in like the early 90s when I was a kid. And always trying to take me to see collegiate wrestling. I just couldn't get into it, even though it's a great sport. And I was so focused on, like I said, wrestling and Illinois football and basketball. And so it was an easy choice for me. I only applied to one college. I had gone to University of Illinois Laboratory High School, and it's like half the kids in my high school class, because I went to it's a public school, but it's academic, merit-based. So you had to test and to get in, and they check your grades and your references. But it's a public school. There's no tuition. And I went to the University of Illinois Laboratory High School and went there from 8th grade to 12th grade. And I'd also gone to the university's preschool and kindergarten program.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. You never left the campus.
I almost never did leave the campus. Other than 1st grade to 7th grade, I was there for an amazing amount of time. Preschool, kindergarten, and then 8th to 12. And then for college, which was, I did a couple extra years of college too, because I changed majors.
What did you major in?
I started in College of Engineering, and then I had mono, and I got a little, and I tried to catch up, and I didn't get totally caught up, and then I tried to press ahead, and I was like, to be honest, I spent a lot of time watching wrestling and writing Dynamites, which sounds absurd, but I spent a lot of time watching wrestling and writing Dynamites, and they were on different nights of the week, but the great thing about Dynamite is it rhymes with any night. And
True.
So
Good point.
It's been on Wednesdays, it's been on Saturdays, but it's, Dynamite, I've been writing it for about 26 years. and
Wow.
since I was like 12 years old, and so I would late at night, but I also like went out a lot. I mean, you know me pretty well. We're good friends, and
Yeah.
like I'll go out and have a drink and have fun,
Hell yeah.
and so I really
Get that
enjoyed it.
steak
And
and steamed broccoli for you.
that is what I eat a lot of. Yeah. And yellow mustard, as Excalibur pointed out to you on Twitter.
Yes.
So yeah, I have my own peculiarities, but nevertheless, I grew up on that campus, and that may have inspired them. But that's why it was an easy choice for me to go to school at Illinois.
Did your parents meet on that campus too?
Yeah, at a bar.
Wow. Oh, hell yeah. So what? They've been together for how many years now?
50 years. About
Wow.
50, like 50-ish, like a little over 50, I
Good
think.
for them. Is that something that you like aspire to, seeing your parents be together for so long and
Yeah.
everything they've been able to build together? That's pretty fantastic.
It is amazing what they built together, and it's amazing what they've done professionally. And I believe they've raised a great family. I love my sister very much, and she and her husband are very happy, and I'm trying to do the best for the family I can. So I definitely think that's very inspirational. And my mom doesn't get talked about as much, but she loves AEW too. And I wouldn't have been able to go to the video stores and rent all those wrestling tapes and all those WCW shows and Coliseum videos if it weren't for my mom taking me and having a lot of patience. And I didn't always get these. I mean, I would have gone every day if I could, but she was pretty patient with me. And honestly, my parents have inspired me a lot. Absolutely. Even though they didn't really watch wrestling before AEW, it wouldn't have been possible for me to order pay-per-views, even though, and they, people would think I was Tony Khan probably ordered like every wrestling pay-per-view.
Sure.
I did not. They did not. I watch a lot of my parents are hard people. I watched a lot of wrestling pay-per-views through the Scrambled.
Did you? So this is a weird question, but with us having a baby on the way, John's very much of the mindset of like, our kids needs to think that we're poor. I want them to think that we don't really have anything, so that they have to work harder. They don't just get everything. Was it like that?
Yeah, at first I had no idea until older people told me that my family had money. Seriously, I didn't know
Really?
there was any difference. Yeah, they didn't tell me. And occasionally they would tell me not to tell the other kids at school when I was really young about like going to Toys R Us, and it was actually called Children's Palace. The one I think our Children's Palace, when that closed, it became a Toys R Us. Okay. But so yeah, it was like, don't tell people you go there or whatever. But I had no idea, and then some stuff made sense later. And then not long after that, my dad got a plane, which was great because I started to see him a lot more often. He got a small twin-engine plane, which was great because it allowed him to be able to spend time at home a lot more, because the trips that used to be overnight trips became same-day trips, and he could go back and forth to Detroit and make it back for dinner. And he used to drive sometimes, and take a lot of commercial flights and connect. So it just changed his life, and that also made it possible for him to spend a lot more time with us. So that was cool.
What made him want to branch into the sports world? I mean, he starts with Flex and Gate, creating parts for Toyota, right?
Yeah.
And then branches into getting the Jaguars, now Fulham FC, you've got the Premier League, and now you've got AEW. What kind of sparked that of like, I want to invest my money in this and start really focusing in this area?
Well, it's the thing. My whole life, my dad always wanted to own a football team, an NFL team, and he always said that's the great asset.
That's
the
when
NFL is the
really
greatest
made
league.
It, right?
I think so. And he always wanted to do it, and that was his dream. And he worked for years for, probably close. I mean, he worked so long to accumulate wealth, but then he worked a long time to figure out how you buy an NFL team, who you work with. And he came pretty close to buying the Rams. And it's in the eye of the beholder how close he really came. But he had an agreement to buy 60% of the Rams, and the current owner, Mr. Kroenke, who owns the Rams right now, he owned 40%, and he had the right to match and buy the other 60%, but he had never done it before. And so Dad bought the 60% on paper, which triggered the matching rights. And he, at the end of the window, he exercised them, and he did end up now owning 100% of the Rams. Yeah. Which was actually kind of a local team for us, because Champaign is sort of in between this triangle of St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Chicago. And St. Louis is close to a lot of people in Champaign Tarts, and I've spent a lot of time there, so it would have been cool. But then it worked out amazingly, and I wouldn't ever change a thing, because you look at where we're at now with the Jaguars here, and also AEW being run out of Jacksonville, and having this great fan base and this great place where we're able to safely run these shows outdoors, even in the winter. It's pretty cool. So
yeah, it's a great venue. I love that venue. It's really, especially the last time I was there, and like the sunset's coming down. It's a hell of an ambiance.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, you have a good excuse why you're not here right now. So
That's
we miss
true.
you.
That's true. I'll be back. I'll be back with a kid in tow next time, 100%.
I'm excited for that. I will have.
Hopefully,
it'll be. I can't wait to meet this kid.
Yeah, like and then Brandy and Cody will be just like a month behind us. So we'll have to set up like some kind of a playpen back there or something. I don't know.
This is our developmental plan. Our developmental program is you guys just keep having babies.
Just keep procreating. Well, listen, Tony, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and chat and be so open and spill the beans on so much cool wrestling stuff and about your family and growing up and everything. So it's been a blast to get to see you and catch up with you. And hopefully I'll get to see you in person soon.
The pleasure is mine. It's been way too long. We've really missed you. And like I said, there's been a very valid reason why you haven't been around recently. But this is selfishly for me. I was just really excited to see you and catch up. So this is a rare pleasure. And honestly, the pleasure was all mine. It's great to see you.
Thanks so much. And congratulations with everything going on with you. You're a very busy man. So maybe you'll go take a nap or something now, or rest, or move into your new place. Go move.
I will. Thank you.
Yes, go move.
I appreciate that, and I will be at work. I have not had time to participate in that move, but there is a move happening. I really just can't say enough about how great you are, and I'm excited that the show is a big success for you, and I just hopefully we see you soon. And give my best to John. I'll see him soon, and hopefully we're all back together. And I would love for AEW to be in Las Vegas as planned.
I'll be there. Don't worry. I'll put my mom to work.
I love it. That's great.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tony. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Renee.
Bye.